Let's go ahead and try to review where we are right now. So we looked at proteins and carbs. We saw the metabolism for each one involves intermediate steps. The thing to try to do at this point is to try to integrate them and see where they fit together. So for example, let's say I asked you, is it possible to make ATP from proteins? Well, this diagram has the answer. Let's see if we can do that. We eat proteins, they become amino acids. After we deaminate, we take the CH's and O's. We can then plug them in, we can make keto acids from them. We can convert those to acetyl-CoA. Well, acetyl-CoA can turn into citric acid, and by golly, we can make ATP. So look what we just did, kids. Holy, what manner of sorcery is this? We've taken proteins and turned them into ATP. It's possible, right? And we see the exact pathway. I want you to be able to see the exact pathway. Amino acids, deamination, keto acids, acetyl-CoA, citric acid, cycle, ATP, all right? We can do it. So remember, your body basically can make ATP out of anything, all right? That's how efficient you are. Now, do you normally make ATP out of proteins? No. Your body would, normally your diet has many more carbs than proteins in it, okay? But for some reason, if you weren't getting any carbs and you weren't getting any lipids, could you actually use proteins to make energy? Well, yeah, you actually could. If you're on some sort of weird, like Neolithic caveman diet, you live out by picture rocks and have a bow and arrow and hunt javelina, and you eat nothing but raw javelina pectoral muscle, then yeah, your body will probably, you can still make ATP. Your body will try to fix the fact that you're completely screwed up. Your body will try to take care of you anyway, okay? So, but normally this is not a happy situation. These would be people who would be the other people who are using proteins to make ATP, people who have no carbs or lipids, even though they want them. In other words, people who are starving to death. Or the other thing is people who are wasting away, people with terminal cancer and stuff. Their metabolism goes to hell. They you end up using your own muscle mass to make ATP. That's usually not a happy situation. So, and then remember, so we can take proteins, we can make ATP, just follow the arrows. We can also take proteins to make glucose, as we saw gluconeogenesis. Let's start talking about lipids now. So lipids, from your diet, all right? What kinds of lipids are we talking about, okay? So there are lots of different lipids in the diet, but the main dietary lipid is a triglyceride. Remember triglycerides? So triglyceride, glyceride with three things. Remember they look like the things that were trying to attack Keanu Reeves' ship in the Matrix, okay? The things with the tentacles and stuff. So they've got a head and these tentacles. The head is a glycerol, all right? So that's a glycerol. And the tails are fatty acids, which basically just fats. These are just hydrocarbons. These are just big strings of carbons and hydrogens, and on the end there's some oxygens to make it an acid. Okay, but these are basically fats. These are little fat molecules, okay? So, triglycerides will break down into glycerol, and they'll also then break down into fatty acids. But wait a minute, is there a name we've seen before for taking triglycerides and breaking them down into their component parts? We have seen that name before. That's lipolysis. Lipolysis. Lipo, fat, lysis, break down. Lipolysis, we break down the triglycerides into glycerol and fatty acids. Now, watch this. You can actually take glycerol and turn it into G3P. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So what does that mean? Look what that means. We can eat cheese fries. And we can turn cheese fries into glucose and glycogen. All right? In other words, we can turn fat into carb. All right? So we can get our glucose. If for some reason we're not getting enough carbs in our diet, we can get that glucose by taking the glycerol from the triglycerides and converting that to glucose. Now then, fatty acids can do another thing here. Fatty acids can come down here and they can be converted likewise into the magic molecule of metabolism, called So what can we do then? We know the name for this. It was in your homework. So this is beta oxidation. Yeah, that didn't work, did it? All right, let's see here. Beta, doing this on a 3-foot board instead of 18 feet of board. Beta oxidation, all right? So beta oxidation, we can make acetyl-CoA. So look what we can do. Look what we just showed that we can do. We can eat fats, and we can do lipolysis. We can get G3P and acetyl-CoA. We can plug them both down this way, and we can make ATP. So we can eat lipids and make energy out of lipids, all right? So we saw also we can make glucose and glycogen, okay? So look at how incredibly versatile your body is. No matter what you eat, you can end up making ATP. Proteins can make ATP, carbs can make ATP, lipids can make ATP. Now, there's an old saying about lipid metabolism, though. And they say fats, whoops, I didn't want that color. Where's my pens? So, fats burn in a carbohydrate flame. And you should always talk important when you say this, because this is a really fats burn in a carbohydrate flame. And so what that means is that in order to really do a lipid metabolism efficiently, you need carbs. In other words, lipids are if you're trying to make energy with lipids, look, you have to use energy to do this. So some of the energy you're making, you have to end up using to power your own thing. And perpetual motion machines don't work. You need carbs to supply some of the energy for this cycle. If you don't, if you can't supply enough carbs to power this, then what can happen here is that this beta oxidation can kind of like back up. You can't really do it fast enough. You get incomplete oxidation, all right? And so what happens is you start converting these things. You convert these acetyl-CoAs into ketone bodies. Now, ketone bodies, again, we saw before ketoacids, they both have ketone groups. But ketone bodies, in this case, really talking about 3 specific ketones that are involved in lipid metabolism. And those are acetone, let's see, oxyacetic acid, no, I can't remember. And one of them's got a butyric group in it. I can't remember. So there are 3 main oxaloacetic acid, I think. Yeah, that's it. And then a butyric one. Beta hydroxybutyric, whatever. So ketone bodies, these aren't bad. Ketone bodies can be used in various metabolic ways. But if you don't have the ability to use carbs to get glucose, and you're trying to rely too heavily on lipid metabolism, these ketone bodies can really start to back up. And ketone bodies have the unfortunate side effect that they lower pH. And so they lower your pH. And so you can go into ketoacidosis, all right? Now, normally, just from being on the Neolithic, javelina pectoral muscle diet, that's probably not going to happen. But do we know of any people who really can't make use of carbs, and if they don't control this condition or in some way? So diabetics, I mean, they may not be able to control it. I mean, it's not necessarily their choice. Diabetics, therefore, this is called, making ketone bodies is called ketogenesis. Who would have thought, huh? Ketogenesis. What's big and red and eats rocks? A big red rock eater. What do you call making ketone bodies? Ketogenesis. How many months have 28 days? All of them. What's the difference between roast beef and pea soup? Anybody can roast beef. So you lower the pH, and now you're in acidosis. And if diabetics do that, they have this term they use, DKA. Diabetic ketoacidosis. The poor diabetics make so many ketone bodies, they can't clear them. They end up in diabetic ketoacidosis. Now, another thing that acetyl-CoA can do is it can make cholesterol. And cholesterol, remember, if you watch TV, you think cholesterol is bad. No, cholesterol is really good. You need it. So remember, cholesterol is what's used to make steroid hormones. Cholesterol also stabilizes the cell membrane. Cell membrane, that's not going to fit on one line, is it? And, oh, a 3-foot board. Thank you, Alex. I love this. Alex, I love you. Thank you so much. Cell membrane. And what else does it do? It does, oh yeah, it makes bile. So, yeah. So there we go. So look, lipids, you can make ATP. You can use anything to make ATP. That's how versatile your body is. And look at how the magic molecule of metabolism is involved in so many pathways here. That's why it's so important. Now let's go back to one other thing. Remember, we had this blue arrow over here. What the hell's going on with this blue arrow? Well, we can take keto acids and make acetyl-CoA. Turns out we see how the lipid metabolism can flow into this pathway. Can this pathway flow back? Yes, it can. So what we can do here is we can take acetyl-CoA and we can make fatty acids. We can take G3P, turn it back into glycerol, and then we can take fatty acids and glycerol, and we can make damn triglycerides. And do we know the name for what this is? Basically taking anything that you eat and turning it into fat, into the stuff underneath your triceps here and the stuff that folds over the muffin tops here, you know, the insides of your thighs. So, yes, what is that called when we make fat? We're talking about Lipo Genesis, the creation of fat. So, look, we've gotten all our big terms in this whole thing here. Look, we got Ketogenesis and beta oxidation and lipogenesis and lipolysis, glycolysis, gluconeogenesis. Look, we covered all that stuff. So this is metabolism. This is how it all fits together. I might ask you to tell me back part of this on an exam. Like, remember with the immune system when we had the cell-mediated and the humoral, and then I had you give me part of that back on an exam? Well, I might actually on the exam ask you to tell me about lipid metabolism, or a carb, or a protein. And you should be able then to answer questions about, again, what can you convert to what? I mean, in a way, kind of the bottom line is you can convert almost anything to almost anything. But here you actually see the pathways where that happens, okay? So I think we're done at this point. I think I've talked about all the stuff I wanted to talk about. So go back through, watch this movie a few times, because there's a lot of stuff in here. It really explains the whole metabolism and ties it all together. And I probably made some mistakes, so, you know, just go ahead and email me, you know, with your hate mail. Let me know. And, you know, I've talked fast here. I probably screwed up, said the wrong thing from time to time. But, you know, email me, text me if you got questions. We'll figure it out.